Lady Agatha Whitmore sat with an unwavering poise in the luxurious confines of her sleek black Bentley, her gloved hands resting delicately in her lap, as if to underline her quiet dignity. At 65, she exuded an air of commanding elegance that turned heads wherever she went. Her hair, now a shimmering cascade of silver, was meticulously arranged, and her ensemble spoke volumes about her affluent status and discerning taste. However, beneath the veneer of her composed demeanor, a storm of emotions roiled with intensity. If you are not subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and activate the bell to avoid missing any videos. 15 long years, she murmured under her breath, her voice barely rising above the hum of the engine. 15 years I've devoted to this community, and now they dare to make changes without so much as a hint of consultation or respect. Her driver, a young man named Thomas, who had been with the Whitmore family for less than a year, stole anxious glances at her through the rearview mirror. "I'm certain it's merely a temporary adjustment, Lady Whitmore," he ventured, his voice tinged with hesitation, hoping to alleviate the evident frustration radiating from her. Agatha's steel gray eyes, piercing and unyielding, glinted with a fiery intensity. "Temporary or not, this affront is utterly unacceptable. The Whitmores have been unwavering cornerstones of this community from the very beginning. Your predecessor would have had the wisdom and respect not to meddle in such matters." Thomas swallowed hard, his throat constricting with unease as he kept his gaze fixed resolutely on the road. The palpable tension emanating from the back seat was almost unbearable. As they neared the gates of Golden Oaks, the Bentley glided to a gentle halt in front of the guard booth. The familiar figure of old Mr. Jameson, who had stood vigil at these gates for what felt like an eternity, was conspicuously absent. In his place, a new face, a man in his mid-40s, with dark skin that sharply contrasted with the pristine white of the Golden Oaks security uniform, now occupied the booth. Lady Agatha's eyes, sharp as a hawk's, narrowed in a blend of surprise and irritation. The change was an unwelcome intruder in her meticulously ordered world, especially within the sanctuary she held dear. Golden Oaks had been her refuge ever since she had married Robert Whitmore decades ago. It was where she had woven the fabric of her life and nurtured her children. And now, in her solitude as a widow, it was the final bastion of her cherished past. The new security guard emerged from the booth with a genial smile, his demeanor meant to be reassuring as he approached the car. Thomas, visibly anxious, lowered the window and prepared to present Lady Whitmore's credentials as per the usual protocol. "Good afternoon," the guard said with a pleasant tone. "Welcome to Golden Oaks Estates. Could I please see your identification?" Before Thomas had a chance to respond, Lady Agatha's voice sliced through the air with a sharp edge of indignation. "Identification? I have resided here for 15 years. I am Lady Agatha Whitmore. Surely you are aware of who I am." The guard's smile remained intact, though a fleeting expression, perhaps of bemusement or resignation, flitted across his face. "I'm sorry, Ma, I am. However, we have recently implemented a new policy requiring us to check all forms of identification, irrespective of residency status, to ensure everyone's safety." Agatha felt a surge of heat rush to her cheeks, her face burning with a fierce indignation that seemed to ignite every nerve in her body. She leaned forward, her voice a dangerous whisper, laced with icy menace. "Young man, do you have any comprehension of who I am? Of the Whitmores' significance to this community?" The guard, maintaining his calm composure, replied, "I fully understand your frustration, Ma-am, but I must insist. My responsibility is to uphold the security of all our residents." The guard's tone, whether it was tinged with condescension or, even worse, a patronizing pity, stoked the embers of Agatha's rage. In that instant, the cumulative frustrations of the past year, the searing loneliness since Robert's death, the subtle, dismissive changes in how people regarded her, and the relentless feeling of being left behind by a world that no longer seemed to acknowledge her, coalesced into an explosive fury. Impulsively, she threw open the car door and emerged with a commanding presence, her stature asserting an almost regal authority. "Listen to me right now," she began, her voice trembling with barely restrained fury. The guard instinctively recoiled, his hands rising in a gesture of placation. Please, there's no need for." Agatha, overwhelmed by her tempest of emotions, was beyond the reach of reason. In a moment of shocking impulsiveness, she raised her hand and delivered a resounding slap to the guard's face. The sharp crack of the impact shattered the oppressive silence that had enveloped them. Time seemed to stretch interminably as Thomas, paralyzed with shock, gaped from the driver's seat. The guard's head snapped to the side, a vibrant red mark blooming on his cheek, while Agatha remained standing, her hand still suspended in midair, as the enormity of her actions slowly sank in. At that precise juncture, another vehicle rolled up behind the Bentley. The door swung open, and out stepped Elizabeth Chen, the esteemed president of the Golden Oaks Community Association. Her eyes widened in astonishment as she took in the dramatic and unsettling tableau unfolding before her. "Agatha, Marcus, what on earth is happening here?" Elizabeth's voice sliced through the charged atmosphere with a piercing clarity. Agatha pivoted towards Elizabeth, a wave of relief washing over her at the sight of a familiar and comforting presence. "Elizabeth, thank heavens you're here. This guard, refuses to grant me entry without identification, as though I were a mere stranger, rather than someone who has lived here for years." Elizabeth's eyes darted between Agatha and the guard, her face a canvas of bewilderment and escalating concern. "Agatha," she said carefully, "do you not recognize who this is?" Should I? Agatha's tone was haughty, though the edge of her indignation was tempered by a flicker of uncertainty. The guard, who had been identified as Marcus, had regained his composure and stood with an air of serene dignity that now made Agatha feel oddly disquieted. Elizabeth inhaled deeply, her voice taking on a serious tone. "Agatha, this is Marcus Johnson. He is not merely a security guard, he is the new owner of Golden Oaks Estates." Agatha's world seemed to shudder and spin as she absorbed this revelation. The name Marcus Johnson triggered a faint, distant memory. Hadn't there been murmurs of a new investor at the last community meeting? But surely they hadn't meant. "This cannot be," Agatha protested, her voice faltering as her previously unshakable certainty began to crumble. Marcus finally spoke, his tone measured and composed. "It's not impossible, Lady Whitmore, merely unexpected, I imagine. I acquired Golden Oaks 3 months ago. Since then, I've been personally overseeing the introduction of new security measures designed to enhance the safety and privacy of all our residents." Agatha felt the color drain from her face as the full gravity of her actions crashed over her like a tidal wave. She had just struck the owner of Golden Oaks, a man who, by all appearances, was significantly younger than her children and a stark departure from the old money circle she was accustomed to. The weight of her mistake felt almost tangible, and from a distance she heard Elizabeth's urgent voice cutting through her stunned silence. "Marcus, I am deeply sorry. This is undoubtedly a misunderstanding. Agatha has been under immense stress since Robert's passing, though I know that's no excuse for her behavior." Marcus's voice broke in, carrying a firmness tempered with an undercurrent of empathy. He turned to face Agatha, who found herself unable to raise her eyes to meet his. "Lady Whitmore, I understand that adapting to change can be challenging, but what transpired today is entirely unacceptable. We will need to have a serious conversation about this incident and its repercussions." Agatha nodded, her silence heavy with remorse and the weight of her 65 years pressing down upon her. Elizabeth gently guided her back to the Bentley, and as Agatha caught a glimpse of her reflection in the car's glossy surface, she saw a figure who appeared suddenly frail, diminished, and profoundly foolish. The gates of Golden Oaks creaked open slowly, but for Agatha, the familiar surroundings offered no solace. As the Bentleys glided through the streets she had once proudly called home, they now seemed to taunt her with their serene, almost mocking beauty. The meticulously maintained lawns and grand homes, once symbols of her status, now felt like a mirror reflecting her disgrace. Thomas, acutely aware of the sensitivity of the situation, drove in somber silence. He occasionally stole glances at Agatha through the rearview mirror, noting the profound disquiet that had overtaken her. Although he had only recently joined Lady Whitmore's service, he had never witnessed her so utterly unsettled. Agatha's mind raced, relentlessly replaying the scene at the gates. How had she allowed her emotions to spiral so out of control? Agatha Whitmore, who had once embodied the very essence of grace and sophistication, found herself engulfed by a profound sense of introspection and vulnerability. As the Bentley made its way toward Whitmore Manor, the sprawling estate seemed to stir memories like a melancholy symphony that played softly in the background of her mind. Each turn of the driveway brought her closer to a past that now felt like a distant, shimmering mirage. She was transported back to a time when she had first set foot in this grand residence as a radiant 25-year-old bride, brimming with hope and excitement for the future she would build alongside Robert. He had been her ideal, strikingly handsome, extravagantly wealthy, and deeply entrenched in one of Millbrook City's most prestigious families. Their life together had been a whirlwind of high society charity galas, influential board meetings, and a series of social engagements that marked their status and influence in the community. Robert had been her steadfast protector, carefully shielding her from the harsher, less palatable realities of the world. He managed all of the family's business affairs with a practiced ease, allowing Agatha to focus solely on maintaining their elevated social standing. This harmonious arrangement had worked seamlessly for 4 decades, providing Agatha with a cocoon of comfort and security, until Robert's sudden and jarring departure from this world a year ago. Now, as Thomas opened the car door for her, Agatha was acutely aware of the oppressive weight of her widowhood pressing down on her. Her legs felt unsteady, as if they might give way at any moment, and the house that had once been her cherished sanctuary now seemed to loom over her, an intimidating expanse of emptiness and solitude. "Would you like some tea?" Lady Whitmore Thomas asked gently, his voice tender and filled with quiet empathy. Agatha gave a distracted nod, her mind preoccupied as she made her way into the sitting room. The space, once filled with the warmth of social gatherings and the laughter of family, now seemed hollow and silent. She sank into her favorite armchair, a well-worn seat that had cradled her through countless conversations and moments of reflection. Her gaze fell upon a photograph of Robert, displayed prominently on the mantel. His eyes, always so warm and kind, seemed to reach out to her from the frame. For the first time since his passing, Agatha felt a surge of sharp, unbidden anger toward her late husband. The memory of his steady presence and the void left by his absence created a turbulent mix of emotions within her. "Oh, Robert," she whispered, her voice quivering with a blend of grief and frustration, "you never prepared me for this. You left me to navigate this cold, unfamiliar world alone. How am I supposed to manage without your guidance and support?" Across Golden Oaks, Marcus Johnson was grappling with his own tumultuous emotions. He sat in his home office, the cool relief of an ice pack pressed against his bruised cheek. The day's events had left a physical and emotional mark on him, and the weight of the situation pressed heavily on his shoulders. His wife, Sarah, paced the room with a concerned expression, her steps echoing in the otherwise quiet space. The confrontation at the gate had been a jarring introduction to his new role, and the impact of Agatha's actions lingered, adding to the complexity of his emotions. As he absorbed the gravity of the day's occurrences, Marcus was left to contemplate the delicate balance he would need to strike between maintaining the estate's security and addressing the unforeseen challenges of his new position. "I can't believe she dared to lay hands on you," Sarah fumed, her lawyer instincts immediately kicking in. "We should press charges, Marcus. This is assault, plain and simple." Marcus sighed deeply, the weight of the day's events settling heavily upon him. He gently lowered the ice pack, his gaze distant. "And what would press charges accomplish, Sarah? Besides escalating an already fraught situation, Lady Whitmore is struggling with the recent changes. I want to handle this with some semblance of grace and understanding. This issue isn't solely about me. It's about the community we now oversee and how we can move forward from this." Sarah, usually so composed, sat down beside him, her expression softened with concern. "You make a valid point, but you also need to consider your well-being. You can't simply ignore this, it has to be addressed in some manner. Ignoring it might be interpreted as weakness." Marcus contemplated her words, his expression thoughtful. "I understand that, but I need to navigate this carefully. If I were to press charges, it might only exacerbate tensions within the community. I aim to resolve this situation in a manner that acknowledges the issue at hand, but also fosters unity and understanding among the residents." Sarah nodded slowly, her demeanor shifting from frustration to support. "All right, I see where you're coming from. Just ensure you're looking after yourself too. And remember, if you need any support or someone to talk to, I'm here for you." The following days unfolded with a palpable tension hanging over Golden Oaks. Lady Agatha Whitmore remained secluded within the confines of her home, retreating from the public eye as much as possible. Her days were spent in introspection, deeply contemplating her actions and the ripple effects they had triggered within the community. The incident at the gates had become the talk of the neighborhood, with opinions divided. Some residents sympathized with Agatha, understanding her resistance to change, while others viewed her reaction as a clear overstep, an abuse of her privileged status. Elizabeth Chen, ever the mediator and problem solver, worked tirelessly to calm the waters and mend the rifts that had emerged. She arranged a meeting with Marcus Johnson, determined to chart a course that would allow for healing and reconciliation. During their discussion, the idea of a community forum emerged, a structured opportunity for residents to express their concerns and for Marcus to address them openly. The forum was intended to rebuild trust, encourage dialogue, and bridge the gap that had formed. As the date of the forum approached, Agatha found herself at a significant crossroads. The weight of her actions and their consequences bore down on her with an almost unbearable intensity. Her children, although supportive, were increasingly absorbed in their own lives, leaving Agatha to confront her feelings of isolation alone. It was during a late-night phone conversation with her daughter, Charlotte, that Agatha experienced a glimmer of hope. "Mom," Charlotte said gently, her voice filled with empathy and resolve, "you need to face this head-on. Hiding from it won't solve anything. If you want to restore your place in this community and mend the fractures that have been created, you have to make amends and engage with the process." Agatha listened, her heart heavy with the realization that change was necessary. The support and advice from her daughter resonated deeply, igniting a spark of determination within her. As she prepared for the upcoming forum, Agatha resolved to confront her mistakes, seek forgiveness, and work towards restoring her standing in a community that had once been her sanctuary. Agatha's eyes brimmed with tears as she gazed at the crowd. "But how? How do I undo the damage I've done?" Her voice trembled with a mixture of regret and desperation. Charlotte, always her pillar of strength, reached out and gently clasped her mother's trembling hand. By starting with a sincere apology, people can forgive mistakes, but only if they believe in your genuine remorse and commitment to making things right. The day of the community forum arrived with a palpable sense of anticipation. Lady Agatha Whitmore, flanked by her children, drew a deep breath as she prepared to enter the hall. Her heart raced, every step toward the venue feeling heavier than the last. The room was filled with the faces of her neighbors, some of whom averted their gazes, unable to conceal their judgment. Marcus Johnson, positioned at the front of the room, sat with a demeanor that was calm yet visibly guarded. Elizabeth Chen, the ever-gracious mediator, began the forum with a thoughtful introduction, setting the stage for a much-needed dialogue. She then turned to Lady Agatha, inviting her to address the gathering. Agatha approached the microphone, her heart pounding as she faced the sea of familiar, yet now distant, faces. "Good evening, everyone," she began, her voice steady yet imbued with an unmistakable emotion. "I stand before you tonight burdened with regret and humility. I want to begin by offering my deepest and most sincere apologies for my behavior the other day. My actions, driven by frustration and anger, were completely out of line and wholly unacceptable. I am profoundly sorry for the distress and discomfort I have caused, particularly to Mr. Johnson." She turned her gaze towards Marcus, who responded with a small, measured nod of acknowledgement. The gesture was subtle but meaningful, indicating a willingness to move forward. "I have always taken immense pride in being a part of this community. The values and principles we uphold here have always been a source of strength and inspiration for me. However, I now see that my recent actions fell far short of the standards we all strive to maintain. For that, I am deeply remorseful. My intention now is to make amends and to work diligently to restore the trust that has been eroded." The room remained silent as the audience absorbed her words, the gravity of her apology resonating through the hall. Agatha felt a flicker of hope as she spoke, believing that this was the first step toward redemption. Marcus Johnson rose to speak next. His voice was measured and considerate, reflecting the complexity of the situation. "Thank you, Lady Whitmore, for your heartfelt apology. It takes courage to stand before a community and admit mistakes. I appreciate your willingness to address the issue openly and to seek a path forward." He paused for a moment, his gaze sweeping over the crowd before returning to Agatha. "It's important that we all remember that change can be challenging, and emotions can run high. My goal as the new owner of Golden Oaks is not to alienate or divide, but to ensure that our community remains a safe and welcoming environment for everyone. I believe that by working together and engaging in open dialogue, we can overcome the difficulties that have arisen and rebuild the harmony that defines Golden Oaks." The audience listened intently, the tension in the room beginning to ease as Marcus spoke with a blend of firmness and empathy. The forum continued with a productive exchange of ideas and concerns, allowing residents to voice their opinions and seek reassurance. As the evening drew to a close, Agatha felt a sense of cautious optimism. The path to redemption and reconciliation would be long and fraught with challenges, but she had taken the crucial first step. With her children by her side and the support of those willing to give her a chance, Agatha knew that while the road ahead might be difficult, it was one she was determined to navigate with integrity and commitment. The forum's conclusion brought a sense of cautious optimism to Lady Agatha. As she left the hall, a small but genuine smile played on her lips. The atmosphere had shifted from one of tension to one of renewed commitment and understanding. The discussions about new community guidelines and initiatives were a hopeful sign that Golden Oaks could heal and grow stronger from the incident. As she made her way back to her car, Agatha felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. The path to redemption was far from over, but for the first time since the confrontation, she felt a glimmer of hope. It was a small step, but it was a step towards reclaiming her place in a world she had once cherished deeply. Meanwhile, across the estate, Marcus and Sarah Johnson sat on their patio, the fading light of the sunset casting a warm glow over the scene. The day's events had been a whirlwind, and now, as they enjoyed a quiet moment together, the gravity of the situation began to settle in. "You're taking a risk, you know," Sarah said, her voice laced with concern as she sipped her wine. "If this backfires, it could damage your reputation, not just here but in the broader business community. Marcus looked out at the horizon, the vibrant hues of the sunset mirroring the spectrum of emotions he was feeling. I know, but sometimes the biggest risks bring the greatest rewards. I truly believe we have a chance here to create something special, something that could serve as a model for communities everywhere. Sarah reached out, her fingers gently clasping his. "And that's why I love you," she said softly. "Your ability to see the best in people, even when they're at their worst, is one of the many reasons I admire you so much." Marcus squeezed her hand in return, grateful for her unwavering support. "Thank you, Sarah. It means more to me than you know. I believe that if we approach this with empathy and understanding, we can not only resolve this situation but also strengthen the bonds within Golden Oaks." Their conversation continued into the evening, their discussion reflecting their shared commitment to navigating the challenges ahead with grace and integrity. As they looked out over their new home, both felt a sense of purpose and determination. They were not just overseeing a community but nurturing it, shaping it into a place where respect and understanding were paramount. Back at Whitmore Manor, Agatha sat alone in the quiet of her sitting room, a photograph of Robert before her. The room felt different, not just because of the absence of her late husband, but because of the profound changes in her own life. She had taken the first step towards reconciliation, and although the journey was far from over, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. As she sipped her tea, the echoes of the day's forum lingered in her mind. The community's willingness to engage in dialogue and the opportunity for healing had rekindled a spark within her. It was a chance to rediscover her place in a world that had shifted in ways she had never imagined. With a deep breath, Agatha resolved to embrace this new chapter with openness and a renewed commitment to contributing positively to Golden Oaks. The path forward would be challenging, but she was ready to face it with the grace and strength that had defined her life for so long. As the stars began to twinkle outside, the estate of Golden Oaks stood poised on the brink of transformation. It was a community in flux, striving for unity and understanding, and both Lady Agatha Whitmore and Marcus Johnson were determined to shape its future with empathy, respect, and unwavering resolve. As night fell over Golden Oaks, a palpable sense of anticipation enveloped the community. Change was not merely a possibility, it was a certainty. For Lady Agatha Whitmore, it marked the dawn of a new chapter, a shift from the sheltered confines of her previous life to a more engaged and proactive role. For Marcus Johnson, it was a step toward realizing his vision of a genuinely inclusive and harmonious community. For Golden Oaks itself, it was the beginning of a transformative journey that promised to challenge perceptions, dismantle barriers, and unite its residents in ways they had never imagined. In the weeks following the community meeting, the pace of life for Lady Agatha Whitmore had accelerated dramatically. No longer was she merely an observer at society's fringes, she was at the heart of the action. Her days, once filled with idle gossip and charity luncheons, were now consumed with planning meetings, extensive research, and a flurry of phone calls. The first community outreach event, scheduled for the end of the month, loomed large on her agenda, and Agatha was resolute in her commitment to make it a success. One crisp autumn morning, Agatha stood in front of her full-length mirror, scrutinizing her reflection with a critical eye. The transformation she had undergone was more than physical, it was deeply personal. Gone was the image of the perfectly coiffed society matron of old, replaced by a woman with a purposeful gleam in her eye and a renewed sense of determination. Dressed in a smart yet comfortable pantsuit, she was ready to meet with Marcus Johnson to finalize the details of their first community event. As Thomas drove her to the Johnson residence, Agatha marveled at how much her life had changed in such a short time. The Gates incident, as it had come to be known in her mind, had served as a profound wake-up call. It had forced her to confront uncomfortable truths about herself and the world around her. She was no longer the aloof figure she once was. She had been compelled to examine her role in a community that was evolving in ways she hadn't anticipated. Marcus's residence, a contemporary house that contrasted sharply with the traditional charm of Golden Oaks, came into view. It was a symbol of the new era that Marcus was ushering in, and Agatha found herself both excited and apprehensive as they arrived. Thomas parked the Bentley, and Agatha made her way to the front door, her steps measured and confident. Marcus greeted her warmly, his demeanor reflecting both the challenges and the opportunities ahead. "Good morning, Lady Whitmore," Marcus said with a smile. "I'm glad you could make it. Let's go over the final details for the outreach event." As they walked into the house, Agatha took in the modern decor and the open, welcoming atmosphere. Marcus led her to a spacious office where a large table was covered with plans, schedules, and notes. "I've been working on the layout for the event," Marcus began, spreading out a detailed map of the community center. "We're aiming for a format that encourages dialogue and fosters connections. There will be breakout sessions, panel discussions, and opportunities for residents to share their experiences and ideas." Agatha nodded, her mind racing through the logistics. "That sounds promising. How can I contribute?" "I'm glad you asked," Marcus said, pointing to a section of the plan. "We're looking to include personal stories and testimonials from longtime residents as part of the event. Your experience and insights would be invaluable in this." Agatha's heart swelled with a mix of pride and nervousness. She had spent so long on the periphery of community life, and now she was being asked to take a central role. "I'd be honored to share," she said. "I think it's important that we all learn from each other's experiences." As the meeting continued, Agatha felt a growing sense of purpose. The event was shaping up to be a significant step towards bridging the gaps within Golden Oaks, and she was excited to be a part of it. She realized that while the path ahead would be challenging, it was also filled with potential for positive change. After finalizing the plans, Agatha and Marcus walked out into the crisp autumn air. The leaves rustled around them, a reminder of the changing seasons and the new beginnings that lay ahead. As they parted ways, Agatha felt a renewed sense of optimism. The journey to rebuild trust and foster unity within Golden Oaks had just begun, but she was ready to face it head-on. Back at Whitmore Manor, Agatha reflected on the progress she had made and the new role she was embracing. The manor, once a symbol of her past life, now seemed like a place of transformation and growth. As she settled into her study, her thoughts were filled with plans and possibilities for the future. The path ahead was uncharted, but Agatha was determined to navigate it with grace and resolve. The community outreach event was just the beginning, and she was ready to contribute to Golden Oaks in ways she had never imagined. With each step forward, she was not only rediscovering her place within the community, but also redefining it for the future. As the sun set over Golden Oaks, casting long shadows across the estate, Agatha knew that the true test of their resolve and the strength of their newfound alliance was yet to come. But for now, she took comfort in the progress made and the promise of a more inclusive and united community. The car pulled up to a modern, glass-fronted house that stood in stark contrast to the traditional mansions of Golden Oaks. Agatha took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves before stepping out. Sarah Johnson greeted her at the door with a warm smile that masked a hint of weariness. "Lady Whitmore, please come in," Sarah said, ushering Agatha inside. "Marcus is in his study." As Agatha followed Sarah through the house, she was struck by the blend of modern aesthetics and traditional African art that decorated the space. The vibrant colors and intricate designs were a far cry from the antique-laden rooms of her own home. The contrast highlighted just how different the Johnsons' approach to life and community was from her own. Marcus rose from behind his desk as they entered the study, extending his hand in a gesture of warm welcome. "Lady Whitmore, thank you for coming." Let's get started, shall we? For the next 2 hours, they delved into the intricacies of planning the upcoming Golden Oaks Unity Dinner. The event was set to be a milestone in their efforts to bridge divides within the community. The evening was to feature a diverse menu representing various cultures, cultural performances, and structured opportunities for residents to engage in meaningful conversations. As they pored over the details, Agatha found herself increasingly engaged. "I've been thinking." She began hesitantly. "Perhaps we could include a speech or presentation about the history of segregation in housing communities. Many of our older residents, including myself, might benefit from understanding the historical context of our current situation." Marcus looked up from his notes, visibly impressed. "That's an excellent idea, Lady Whitmore. I know just the person who could give such a presentation, Doctor. Jamal Washington from the university's sociology department. He's conducted extensive research on the subject and would be perfect for this." The conversation flowed seamlessly from there, and Agatha found herself growing more comfortable in Marcus's presence. His intelligence, compassion, and clear vision for the community were genuinely impressive. A pang of regret hit her as she recalled her initial biases and prejudices. She realized how her previous assumptions had clouded her judgment and prevented her from seeing the potential for positive change. Yet, as the plans for the Unity Dinner began to take shape, Agatha was acutely aware that not everyone in Golden Oaks shared her newfound enthusiasm for change. Whispers of discontent circulated among some of the more traditional residents. Some viewed the event as a threat to the status quo, while others were skeptical of the sincerity behind the effort. In the weeks leading up to the dinner, Agatha made a concerted effort to address concerns and encourage open dialogue. She attended small gatherings, spoke with residents individually, and tried to reassure them of the event's intentions. Despite her best efforts, the opposition persisted, with some residents voicing their objections loudly and publicly. The day of the Unity Dinner arrived, and the atmosphere at the community center was a mixture of excitement and tension. The venue was beautifully decorated, reflecting the event's theme of unity and inclusion. Tables were adorned with centerpieces representing different cultures, and a stage was set for the evening's performances and presentations. Agatha arrived early to help with the final preparations. As she worked alongside volunteers and staff, she found solace in the tangible progress they were making. The room was filled with the aroma of delicious food from various cuisines, and the sound of lively conversation began to replace the earlier tension. When the guests started arriving, the initial apprehension began to dissipate. The community center buzzed with an energy that spoke of hope and possibility. Marcus and Sarah Johnson greeted attendees at the entrance, their smiles reflecting their commitment to the evening's success. As Agatha took her place at a table, she noticed a mix of familiar faces and new ones. The diverse crowd was a testament to the effort that had gone into making the event inclusive and representative of the community's varied backgrounds. When it was time for the presentations, Agatha felt a sense of pride and anticipation. Dr. Jamal Washington took the stage and delivered a compelling talk on the history of segregation in housing communities. His presentation was both enlightening and thought-provoking, sparking thoughtful discussions among the attendees. Throughout the evening, Agatha observed conversations blossoming between residents who might never have spoken to each other before. The performances were met with enthusiastic applause, and the shared experience of the dinner fostered a sense of camaraderie that had been missing from Golden Oaks for far too long. As the night drew to a close, Agatha felt a renewed sense of hope. The Unity Dinner had not only provided a platform for dialogue, but had also begun to bridge some of the gaps within the community. It was clear that the journey towards unity and understanding was just beginning, but the event marked a significant first step. Driving back to Whitmore Manor, Agatha reflected on the evening's events. She felt a deep sense of satisfaction, knowing that she had played a part in something meaningful. The path ahead was still fraught with challenges, but for the first time in a long while, she felt optimistic about the future. The road to reconciliation and community building was long and arduous, but Agatha Whitmore was ready to face it with the same determination that had guided her through her earlier life. The Unity Dinner had been a testament to what could be achieved when individuals came together with a shared vision, and Agatha was committed to seeing that vision realized for Golden Oaks. Elizabeth Chen's phone had been ringing off the hook with complaints and concerns from residents. She sat in her home office, her head resting in her hands as she listened to yet another vehement objection. "This is preposterous," came the shrill voice of Beatrice Hildebrand, one of Golden Oaks' most established and vocal residents. "A Unity dinner? What's next? Letting the help eat at our tables? This Johnson fellow is going to destroy everything that makes Golden Oaks special." Elizabeth took a deep breath, summoning all her patience. "Beatrice, I understand that this is a significant change, but I truly believe it's for the best. Golden Oaks has always prided itself on being forward-thinking. This is our chance to lead by example," Beatrice retorted, her tone icy. "Forward-thinking doesn't mean abandoning our values. Mark my words, this will not end well." As she ended the call, Elizabeth felt a knot of anxiety tighten in her chest. She was acutely aware that resistance to change was a natural part of any transformative process, but the level of hostility and skepticism was disconcerting. She made a mental note to discuss increased security measures with Marcus, just in case the situation escalated further. Meanwhile, Marcus Johnson was navigating his own set of challenges. Seated in a sleek downtown office, he faced the stern visage of Harold Blackstone, a major investor whose displeasure was palpable. "I'm concerned," Johnson Blackstone said, his voice gruff and unyielding. "This diversity push of yours in Golden Oaks is making waves, and not all of them are good. Some of our other investors are getting nervous." Marcus met Blackstone's gaze steadily. "Harold, I understand your concerns. Change can be unsettling, especially when it challenges long-standing norms. But what we're doing here is more than just a community event, it's an investment in the future of Golden Oaks." Blackstone's eyes narrowed. "An investment? It seems more like a gamble. The community is divided, and there are growing fears that this could backfire and damage our reputation." "I appreciate your honesty," Marcus said, leaning forward slightly. "But I truly believe that embracing diversity and fostering inclusivity will ultimately strengthen the community. It's a long-term vision. Yes, there are risks, but there are also significant rewards. We're creating a model that other communities will look to and emulate." Harold Blackstone remained silent for a moment, weighing Marcus's words. "You're confident about this?" Marcus nodded. "Yes, I am. The Unity Dinner is just the beginning. We're laying the groundwork for a more inclusive and cohesive community. It may be uncomfortable now, but in the long run, it's the right thing to do." Blackstone sighed, his expression softening slightly. "Well, if you believe in it that strongly, I suppose I can give you more time. But you need to keep me updated on the community's response and any developments." "Of course," Marcus replied, standing up and extending his hand. "I appreciate your support and understanding, Harold." As Marcus left the office, he couldn't shake the feeling of mounting pressure. The resistance from both the community and his investors was a daunting challenge, but he remained resolute. He was determined to see the Unity Dinner succeed and to prove that his vision for Golden Oaks was not just an idealistic dream, but a practical and beneficial path forward. Back in Golden Oaks, Elizabeth Chen was preparing for the Unity Dinner with a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. Despite the backlash, she remained committed to the event's success. She and her team were working around the clock to ensure that every detail was perfect, from the menu to the security arrangements. The day of the Unity Dinner arrived with a blend of excitement and nervous energy. The community center was transformed into a vibrant and welcoming space, filled with colors and decorations that reflected the diverse cultures of Golden Oaks. The air was alive with the sounds of laughter, music, and animated conversations. Agatha Whitmore arrived early, her heart racing as she took in the scene. The effort and care put into the event were evident, and she felt a renewed sense of purpose. As she mingled with the guests and made her way to the stage for her opening remarks, she couldn't help but feel a surge of hope. The evening began with a series of cultural performances and speeches, setting a positive tone for the event. Dr. Jamal Washington delivered a compelling presentation on the history of segregation in housing communities, providing valuable context for the evening's discussions. As the night progressed, the atmosphere began to shift from one of tension to one of camaraderie. Conversations flowed more freely, and attendees from different backgrounds started to connect. The success of the Unity Dinner was becoming apparent, despite the challenges faced along the way. In the weeks following the event, the impact of the Unity Dinner began to resonate throughout Golden Oaks. The initial resistance gradually gave way to a more open dialogue about inclusivity and community values. While not everyone was immediately on board, the seeds of change had been planted. Marcus, Agatha, and Elizabeth continued to work tirelessly, addressing concerns, fostering communication, and building on the momentum created by the Unity Dinner. The path ahead was still fraught with obstacles, but they were united in their commitment to making Golden Oaks a community that embraced diversity and inclusivity. The journey was far from over, but the successes of the Unity Dinner had laid a strong foundation for future progress. The true test of their efforts would be how they navigated the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead. For now, they could take pride in the small victories and the positive changes beginning to take root in their community. Marcus leaned forward, his voice calm but resolute. "Harold, I understand their concerns, but I stand by my decision. Golden Oaks has the potential to be a model for inclusive, diverse communities. That's not just good ethics, it's good business." Blackstone's frown deepened, his skepticism evident. "From where I'm sitting, it looks like you're risking a stable, profitable investment on some pie-in-the-sky social experiment." "It's not an experiment," Marcus countered firmly. "The future demographics are changing. In 10 or 20 years, communities that haven't adapted will be left behind. We're ahead of the curve." The meeting ended with Blackstone warning Marcus to tread carefully. As Marcus drove home, frustration gnawed at him. He had anticipated resistance but hadn't expected it to come from so many angles simultaneously. As the day of the Unity Dinner approached, tensions in Golden Oaks reached a boiling point. Agatha found herself in the thick of it, trying to navigate between her long-standing friends resistant to change and her newfound commitment to Marcus's vision. One afternoon, she sat in her garden with her oldest friend in the community, Victoria Fairfax. Victoria, picking at her scone with a mixture of disdain and distress, broke the silence. "Agatha, I don't understand what's gotten into you. This crusade of yours, it's not like you at all." Agatha, holding her teacup with a steady hand, chose her words with care. "It's not a crusade, Victoria. It's growth. I've come to see that the world is changing, and we need to evolve with it." Victoria's eyes narrowed. "Change, my dear? We've spent our lives cultivating a certain standard of living, a certain society, and now you want to throw it all away. For what? To appease some upstart who doesn't understand our ways." "Marcus Johnson is not an upstart," Agatha said, her voice rising slightly. "He's a successful businessman with a vision for our community. And our ways, as you put it, aren't above scrutiny or improvement." Victoria stood abruptly, her face flushed with anger. "I see he's thoroughly brainwashed you. Well, don't come crying to me when this all blows up in your face. Some of us still remember what Golden Oaks is supposed to stand for." As Victoria stormed off, Agatha felt a pang of sadness and a deep sense of resolve. She was losing friends, but she was also gaining a new understanding of herself and the world around her. The cost of progress was clear, and it was steep, but Agatha was determined to see it through. In the days leading up to the Unity dinner, the atmosphere in Golden Oaks was charged with a mix of apprehension and excitement. The event was seen as a litmus test for the future of the community. Elizabeth Chen continued to work tirelessly, ensuring that every detail was meticulously planned and executed. The team handled last-minute changes with calm efficiency, trying to address every concern and anticipate every potential issue. As Agatha and Marcus prepared for the event, they found themselves in frequent communication, fine-tuning plans and addressing any emerging concerns. The Unity dinner had become more than just an event. It was a symbol of the transformation they hoped to achieve. On the evening of the Unity dinner, the community center was transformed into a vibrant space filled with diverse decorations, each reflecting different cultures and traditions. The air was filled with the sounds of music and lively conversation. Despite the underlying tension, there was an undeniable sense of anticipation and hope. As Agatha took the stage for her opening remarks, she looked out over the audience with a mixture of pride and anxiety. The speeches and performances began, showcasing the rich cultural tapestry of Golden Oaks. Dr. Jamal Washington's presentation on the history of segregation was met with thoughtful silence and nods of agreement from many attendees. Gradually, the atmosphere began to shift. Conversations flowed more easily, and a sense of camaraderie began to emerge. Despite the earlier resistance, the evening marked a turning point. It was clear that, while the journey ahead would be challenging, there was a growing willingness to engage in dialogue and embrace change. As the night drew to a close, Marcus and Agatha exchanged a look of quiet satisfaction. The Unity dinner had been a success in ways they had hoped and beyond. The path forward was still uncertain, but they had taken a significant step towards a more inclusive and united Golden Oaks. The true measure of their success would be how the community continued to evolve and adapt in the months and years to come. For now, they could take solace in the progress made and the promise of a brighter future, even as they prepared for the ongoing challenges that lay ahead. As Marcus approached, he couldn't help but be impressed by the transformation of the community center. The space was alive with color, culture, and the promise of unity. His smile grew wider as he took in the vibrant displays and the palpable sense of anticipation in the air. "Agatha, this looks incredible," he said warmly, extending a hand to her. "You've done a remarkable job." Agatha, who had been anxiously checking and rechecking the details, took a deep breath and met his gaze. "Thank you, Marcus. I couldn't have done this without your support." The clock ticked closer to the start of the dinner, and the first guests began to arrive. Elizabeth Chen, ever the professional, greeted them with her usual grace and efficiency. Despite the earlier criticisms, she had become a staunch advocate for the event, recognizing the potential for positive change. As the guests mingled, there was a mix of excitement and apprehension. The dinner's success hinged not just on the food and entertainment, but on the willingness of the attendees to engage with one another and embrace the spirit of the evening. When the time came for the opening remarks, Agatha stood at the podium, her heart racing. She looked out over the sea of faces, some familiar, some new, and took a deep breath. Her sari rustled softly as she adjusted the microphone. "Good evening, everyone," she began, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "Tonight we gather not just for a meal, but for a moment of connection and understanding. This evening represents a new chapter for Golden Oaks, a chapter where we come together as a community, embracing our differences and celebrating our shared humanity." She continued, speaking about the importance of unity, the need for open dialogue, and the courage it took to face the challenges ahead. Her words were heartfelt, reflecting the deep introspection and growth she had experienced in the past weeks. As the applause faded, The evening unfolded with a series of engaging cultural performances, speeches, and a diverse array of dishes from around the world. Guests moved from table to table, trying new foods and striking up conversations with people they might never have met otherwise. One particular moment stood out: a spontaneous discussion between a long-time resident and a newcomer, bridging gaps that had seemed insurmountable before. Agatha and Marcus watched from the sidelines, exchanging smiles of satisfaction. The night was proving to be a success beyond their hopes. As the dinner drew to a close, Marcus took the stage to express his gratitude. "Tonight has been a testament to what we can achieve when we come together. I am deeply grateful to every one of you for embracing this vision and making it a reality. The journey isn't over, but we have taken a significant step forward." The crowd erupted in applause, and Agatha felt a sense of relief and accomplishment. The Unity Dinner had not only succeeded in bringing people together, but had also marked the beginning of a new era for Golden Oaks. As the guests began to leave, Agatha and Marcus stood near the exit, exchanging farewells and thanking attendees for their support. The night was a whirlwind of emotions, but as Agatha glanced around at the happy faces and engaged in conversations, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Walking to her car, Agatha realized that while the challenges ahead were still daunting, she had taken the first crucial step toward healing and unity. She was ready to face whatever came next, knowing that the path she had chosen was one of true progress and genuine connection. As Agatha stood alone in the quiet, empty community center, the weight of the evening's success began to sink in. The decorations and remnants of the vibrant event still filled the room, each one a testament to the hard work and dedication that had gone into the Unity Dinner. She took a deep breath, feeling a sense of accomplishment and relief wash over her. The evening had been a success, and while she knew there were still hurdles to overcome, the positive reactions and genuine conversations she had witnessed were a promising start. Victoria's words echoed in her mind, and she realized that while not everyone might have been convinced, the evening had provided a platform for dialogue and connection. That, she felt, was a victory in itself. The next steps would require continued effort and patience. The true test of the Unity Dinner's impact would be how it influenced the community moving forward. The conversations that began that night needed to continue, and the bridges that had been built needed to be strengthened. As she turned off the lights and locked the doors, Agatha felt a renewed sense of purpose. The road ahead was uncertain, and she knew there would be resistance and setbacks. But for the first time in a long while, she felt confident in her ability to navigate the challenges and continue working towards her vision for Golden Oaks. She looked out one last time at the empty room, a soft smile on her lips. The community had taken a significant step towards change, and she was ready to guide it further. With her renewed resolve, Agatha left the community center, ready to face whatever came next with determination and hope. Thank you for joining us on this journey through Golden Oaks and the transformation that unfolded within its community. We've witnessed the challenges and triumphs of Lady Agatha Whitmore and Marcus Johnson as they navigated the complexities of change, resistance, and unity. Their story is a powerful reminder that growth and progress often come with their share of struggles, but they also offer opportunities for meaningful connections and positive change. So, what have you learned from this story? Reflecting on the events and characters we've explored, think about the lessons and insights that stood out to you. How can these lessons be applied to your own life and community? We'd love to hear your thoughts and reflections. Please share in the comments below one key takeaway you've gained from this video and how you plan to bring that lesson into practice in your life. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content like this. Your support helps us continue creating valuable and inspiring content for you. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.